want to welcome our guest, Sharon Toval and Rotem Tamir, and we, the Art Center, on behalf of the Art Center, I'm looking forward to hear you discuss in depth the ideas and process of creating Rima, Passage in Sephardic Sculpture. And this is a solo exhibition by Rotem Tamir and curated by Sharon Toval. And the show is on view until October 27th. So there's still a little bit of time to go and see it if you haven't yet. This exhibition offers a profound exploration of ancient craft tradition interwoven with themes of cultural heritage, family ties, and the resilience of women across generations. Rotem and Sharon work hard on a catalog. So if you want to pre-order the catalog, I am going to share a link soon in the chat as well, where you can pre-order your catalog and get it home, and it's gorgeous. I'm just going to introduce briefly our two speakers. So Rotem Tamir is an artist whose work delves into the tradition of object making, tracing their evolution as they traverse time and space along their careers, drawing inspiration from global heritages of pre-industrial domestic applies craft. Tamir honors their origin and reinvigorates them as subject of contemporary inquiry into place, belonging, and post-feminist politics. She's originally from Israel and migrated to the States in 2011. She's currently the assistant professor in sculpture at the Department of Art at the University of Minnesota. She holds a master's degree in fine arts from VCU Arts in Richmond, Virginia, and a bachelor's degree in fine arts from the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. And her work has been showcased in exhibition across the United States, internationally, and in venues like the Minnesota Museum of American Art, the Art Museum in Gainesville, Florida, and more. So thank you for being here with us, Rotem. Our other speaker, Sharon Toval, is a curator and researcher of contemporary art. He operates in the field of visual art internationally. He holds a master's degree, an MA in Policy and Theory of the Arts from Bezalel Academy of the Arts and Design, graduating in 2014, and he specialized in museology studies at the Israel Museum. So since 2018, he's been managing and curating the lab in Tel Aviv, an experimental art space where he initiated research projects within various cultural and social contexts. His multicultural background imbues his identity and allows for broad understanding of the collaborative nature of art across the globe. His curatorial vision manifests in constructing artistic bridges, like we've seen today, that seek to transcend the social, political, and geographical crises prevalent in the contemporary era. So Sharon will also read the presentation by independent researcher Xia Alon, who couldn't be here today. And her essay is featured in the catalog. And I'll post those links for you all, and I'll let the floor to Sharon and Rotem.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for this introduction. Good evening. Good evening for me. Good morning for the Americans. I'm Sharon, and I'm going to share a very short presentation. First of all, I'm very honored and moved by this artist talk, which reflects the one of the final steps of our years-long exhibition and research. It's a long journey that started during the coronavirus, the pandemic, when Rotem invited me to a virtual studio tour as part of the McKnight residency program. I was in Israel and she was in Minneapolis, and we never met physically until last April. So everything was virtual, and for me it was the first exhibition made by this way. And I think thanks to Rotem, thanks to our very good synergy, we could succeed to have this common process and thinking and developing this exhibition, because virtually it's not so easy. Our research interests align particularly in exploring the intersection of visual art and Eastern Jewish culture. So that's why Rotem contacted me, and we immediately understood that we are researching the same areas. The second phase, this was some images from April. This was the second phase of the process when I visited Rotem in Minneapolis and the Rochester Art Center. I met Pam, Zoe, and all the team. I visited, finally, I could visit the Rotem studio where we started to not started to talk about everything, but I could physically sense the thought that we were talking about. This was actually a very important point in our research. Who is I'm going very fast. I'm just introducing the exhibition, and Rotem is going to talk much deeper on the show and the exhibit. So who is Rima? Rima is Rotem's great aunt. She was a courageous woman who left her family in Iraq at the beginning of the 20th century to travel the world, collecting and purchasing fabrics. Rotem followed in her footsteps, traveling to India, to the Negev desert to learn some traditional crafts. So what is known of Rima is that she was a very courageous and ambitious Iraqi Jewish religious woman who left her 7 children to travel the world, which was quite unthinkable for this time. We know that in 1929 she was in Palestine during the riots, the famous riots that took place here. The exhibition is after her idea of freedom, independence, and avant-garde feminine combat for equality. I see it like that. I see that Rotem was inspired by this avant-garde woman, and I think all the journey that Rotem did was completely inspired by Rima's journey as well, metaphysically, or maybe Rotem is Rima in the present. Who knows? So the exhibition is a result of several years of research, and it embodies a Jewish spirituality expressed through different forms and artworks in the show. I won't get into that. Rotem is going to talk about it much more. As I wrote in my article, dwelling in present memories published in the catalog, the artworks create a unique space-time dimension, cosmic gateways, leading viewers to a realm where time is negligible, where everything happens, has happened, and will happen simultaneously. What I meant by that is that a lot of things that Rotem did were born from a hidden memory that she even didn't know about. For example, when she started to learn in India the block printing, then she was excellent at it, and it's a very complicated technique. She was excellent at it from the beginning, so it's a kind of recovered memory from a DNA, from a past life. Who knows? This exhibition is about metaphysical and hidden memories that came to the present. And Rotem took all these memories and translated them into a very sophisticated and intelligent art installation. What I added as a curator is the dimension of the spiritual, and I linked some artifacts to for example, here with the bronze sculpture of the word lev. In Hebrew, lev means heart. but it also means loves, and it has a numerological importance in the Kabbalah, which is the hidden text of the Jewish philosophy. The mattress, the round mattress is also very symbolic of the sign of the infinite, which is our our God, our complete abstract God. We don't have a representation of our God. Few words about the structure of the installation. There is a central piece, as you see, which is the round mattress, in which Rotem incorporated few objects, and the sound is also emanating from it. So she is going to elaborate on this. And around this central piece, there are four main directions. The direction of the heart, like we saw, the direction of the rope making, the wooden apparatus, which resemble like to all the torture apparatus, the textile direction, the textile area, which is from few directions of the space, and the domestic space, which I call domestic. It's the hang car and the mattress on the floor. So each fabric mattress exposed is charged with several layers that one has to bear in mind. First of all, the visual outcome of the piece created by the artist. Then it includes a layer of all the communities of professionals and craft makers involved in each piece indirectly. The block printing and the stamp from India and the farms in Minnesota for the wool, etc., etc. I think Rotem is going to talk about that. And a layer of the personal story or memories from Rotem's family. And the last layer that I would say is the spiritual and philosophical meaning and charge of each artwork that is presented. All this, all the installation is surrounded, let's say, englobed by the sound work of Nir Jacob Younessi. The sound work is, I will send you after the link in the chat. You can hear the sound, and the sound work is called Al Dunya, the mother of the world. It integrates layers of traditional Jewish North African songs, deconstructed with some working noises from Rotem work process. And I'm sure that there are also other layers because Rotem worked directly with the sound artist on this amazing piece, amazing sound piece. Just a note that I wanted you to know, there is not, it's not a symmetrical, the title of the exhibition is not symmetric. In English, it's, we use the word passages in Sephardic sculpture, and in Hebrew, it's nedidot. Nedidot, it's more wandering than passing. The aspect of the element of contingency, unplanned, planned and unplanned, and more spontaneous flowing process was very important in Hebrew to be reflected in the title. And also wandering is reflecting also the wandering of Rima and the wandering of Rotem during the process of this exhibition. And lastly, I would like to add that this exhibition is significant for me as part of the long-term research into the visual expression rooted in the Eastern Jewish tradition. I created in 2019 the Shuma exhibition, which is actually I could see, now I understand that Rotem exhibition is a kind of second chapter after the first chapter, and then maybe there will be a third chapter, I don't know. But this exhibition is, this theme is, and Ktia is talking about it, this theme is, has been marginalized in Israel for many, many years, and just recently it starts to become much more current and much more talked about. But when I curated Shuma in 2019, it was still very difficult for me to be understood as what is Sephardic, what is Mizrahi art. Is it a lot of people argued with me that it didn't exist, but this exhibition now of Rotem, it's a visual expression that is that takes a definite stance, deeply rooted in the Jewish tradition, and I think that's why I call it the second chapter for me in my long-term research. This is for the. We're gonna have a question answer at the after Rotem presentation. Dr. Ktia Alon was supposed to participate, but she couldn't come. So I'm going to read her text, which is very important in her feministic research about Mizrahi Sephardic or Mizrahi art. I'm reading on behalf of Ktia now. I wish to thank you for your kind invitation to attend this wonderful event. In my short talk today, I wish to claim a broad claim saying that for some years now, Israel is going through a sort of Mizrahi revolution, and that those who define the most interesting pole of this revolution are creative women, using their Mizrahi origin as a fluid, layered, and polysemic characteristic. As a former Israeli, Rotem Tamir is one of these prominent and most interesting groups. This highly imaginative woman, and I shall only mention also the works of photographer Tal Shochat, artist Vered Nissim, Eric Bokobza, Eli Petel, and many, many more. Yes, there are many, many more. For example, the previous one, Shula Keshet, she's one of the first woman who expressed her Mizrahi identity through her art since the end of the beginning of the 80s, I think. So Eli Bokobza, Eli Petel, and many, many more in different fields of art. Also, like the poetic works of Professor Chaviva Bdaya, all of them address the cultural reservoir of the Middle East, the Arabic Orient, and the Ottoman Orient. The Orient is now, she's using the word Orient, but I know that in the US, Orient and Oriental is a little bit slightly different interpretation. So it's Eastern culture or Mizrahi in Hebrew. The Orient is now perceived as a legitimate source of culture and ally. This change of orientation by Israeli toward the Semitic Orient is not new. In the past, when the budding Hebraic culture started to crystallize into Israeli mode of life, there were several organizations that had promoted this idea. The most prominent one, although tiny, was the Knaanite movement that was led by the poet Yonatan Ratosh, the translator Aaron Amir, and others. A key figure connecting the Knaanite and the contemporary Mizrahi phases is the Jewish intellectual of Egyptian origin, Jacqueline Kaanov, who coined the term Levantine and cleansed it from its terrible connotation. Whereas in the past, this was a negative term characterizing an Oriental person only superficially adopting Western etiquettes, unable to assimilate the West's deep culture, Kaanov suggested to use the term for those equally value whatever one gets from the East or from the West. As it is well known, Israel was created on a melting pot ideology as a basis designed to actually annihilate any Eastern influences. But nowadays, there is a new and growing movement back east. As I mentioned, there is today a plastic art and in poetry, a process of assimilation wherein Eastern tradition, dialogues, and many other activities are finding their way into the canonic heart of the Israeli culture. Zoe, if you can go further one slide. Yes, this one. Meir Gal, this is a very famous and canonic artwork. I don't remember the year, but it's quite some years before. Meir Gal created this photography, who actually is holding holding a history book, a real history book. And there were in this history book, out of 400 pages, only 9 pages about the Mizrahi history. You all understand, the significance, but it is a very old work and one of the most important that raised the awareness about the differences and the importance that was given to the Mizrahi culture. I would like to read a small passage that Ktsiya wrote in a very nice article, and then we will finish there. The northern Indian state of Gujarat, Libya, Iraq, Israel, and the United States, all these regions represent layers of culture, depth of meaning, and broad registers of practices, behaviors, and traditions. Artist Rotem Tamir gradually weaves these elements into her soul, ultimately distilling them into a powerful, surging, and complex artistic creation. In her current exhibition, curated by Sharon Toval, Tamir works reaches its peak, offering an immersive, multisensory experience that is intimate, enveloping, and deeply personal. And I will finish by this. So now, Rotem, I know that you prepared a very nice presentation. Thank you all, and we will talk when you have questions in the Q&A session.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Zoe. And thank you, everybody that came today to join us. I would like to start just by kind of like acknowledge the amount of people and organization that came together to have this show. And this is actually, as Sharon mentioned, this is something that is very dear to me. Some of these great people that I work very closely, and their thoughts and sweat are in this exhibition are here today. I'm very excited about that, and I would like to thank you, all of you. This project wouldn't happen without the help of all of you. I will start by some of you couldn't come physically to Rochester. So I'm going to show you a 2 minutes video, that taking from my phone, okay? But just to get a sense a little bit about how the space look like. The main song that you heard in this part was my father singing in Hebrew. It's called Chad Gadya, but he's singing it in Judeo-Tripolitanian, which is the language that the Jewish people talked among them in Libya. You got a sense a little bit about how the space looked like and a little bit about the sound, and I will come back to that sound. Next to the text of Sharon, there is a paper that you can take, and this is what this is what I wrote there, and I'm going to read it to you. In one late night conversation, my mother told me a family story about Rima. Not much is known about her, only that she traveled the world alone during a time when it was very difficult to travel, especially for a religious Jewish woman from Iraq with 7 children. The woman in the family passed down her story with amazement and envy, Rima, the woman of the world. It is known that she reached India and also Palestine and was there during the 1929 riots. She survived because she locked herself in the bathroom. It was also said that the women in the family celebrated when she passed away because they all wanted to take the beautiful fabrics she brought back from her travels around the world. Her story intrigued me greatly, partly because of the striking contrast between this remarkable woman and my grandmother, who was always bitter and stubborn. Even on her last day, my grandmother did not forget the pain of her older brother forcing her to marry a much older man, preventing her from marrying the love of her life. Together with my mother, we set out to learn more about her. We didn't find much, but one chilling fact that even my mother didn't know, which changed our perspective on Rima, was that she started traveling the world after her eldest son was murdered by the family of his lover. So that's really the story that was kind of like, I felt this kind of like a need to go to this journey that brought up, this exhibition. My family calls Sephardic. The exhibition called, right, Rima, Passages in Sephardic Sculpture. If you don't know, Sephardic comes from the word Sfarad, which is Spain in Hebrew. And it's referred to the Jewish community who originate in Spain and forced to live in the 15th century. So my father's side, many of the Jewish community, traveled through the Mediterranean Sea and sat in a different location that was welcomed them. The Ottoman Empire actually welcomed the Jewish people, and that's why they sat in the Ottoman Empire. So my father's side sat in Libya and my mother's side in Iraq. When I heard about Rima and her travels, there is a lot of unknown about my family, the culture that I came from. For me, it was a way to kind of like go back, try to learn something about myself through the generation of women before me. As a Jewish Israeli person, I cannot, of course, visit physically in Iraq or in Libya. So going to or imagine where Rima was traveled to and go there was a way to connect with her. So I looked at the map and literally like, took the liberty and I said, okay, Baghdad is here and here is India. And I looked at the original spice route and I said, okay, there is a good chance that she went here into where I went to, its Buj. And I know that she also traveled to Israel. So I went to the Negev desert. And in both cases, I went to travel traditional craft. In a minute, I will focus why I decided to go there to learn traditional craft in order to learn something about the place and hopefully about my roots. So an overview of the exhibition. Sharon mentioned it, and maybe I will echo Sharon and said that the way we installed the exhibition, we did thought about domestic housing and area in the domestic house, and also about a place that is holy, like a synagogue, and different area there. And there is a relationship, each one of the work we can focus, and I'm going to focus about it individually, but at the same time, it's interact and build in a way to interact with all the other sculptures in the exhibition. So I will start by focusing on the fabrics. Like many other objects, many other sculptures in the exhibition, in my imagination have different functions, right? So the fabric can be something that you cover an area with, right? It can separate one space from another. It can be used to put it on the floor to sit and eat together, right? So multiple functions, and also it's light. You can easily fold it and move with it. A lot of my work also from the past, and definitely here, is related to, I'm thinking about a lot about nomadic cultures, people that from different reasons, whether because you want it or whether because you forced, needed to leave the place where they born and they call home. And then, the question that I'm asking myself is, what make you feel at home in different places, right? So those objects, especially the fabric, you can take with you. So I went to those fabrics made in a wood block print process called adjunct printing, adjunct wood block print. It's only in a few certain area. I think only in three areas. One of them is in Buj. They practicing it. They practicing this craft. It's originally Islamic print that the tribe in Buj used to create and wear. They have a specific kind of characteristic. And what you see here, it's I went to India and I went to learn that craft. And the thing is, the thing that attracted me about traditional craft, when I said traditional craft, what do I mean? I mean a craft that was practicing before the industrial revolutions and developed through generations. And one of the things that you're noticing about those crafts is that they are very much embedded in the geographical location they developed. So if I go to Buj, to the Kutch region, and I'm going to learn that, there is, by learning it in the geographical location it developed, you learn something that I don't think you can learn otherwise about a place. First of all, it's considered one of the most complicated woodblock print because it's layers of layers of layers of resist, around 16 layers, until you actually see the image, right? Until you actually see the image. So of course you cannot control completely the process. And also before you put any color, you put actually the earth, the resist made out of soil and mineral that exist in the land. So physically the land is in the fabric and embedded in the fabric. I also want to talk about the color palettes. There is a very specific color palette to the exhibition and to those fabrics, and that's also traditional in adjunct woodblock print. And the color palette is blue that come from indigo, red that come from madder. It's called madder roots. It's come from a roots of a flower that also like related, by the way, to the spice root, and all of those material have also a very, it shift politics, because country and colonial was fighting on those sources. The black here coming from rust iron, and if there is white, it's the fabric itself, that it's usually it's a cotton. Okay, and that's the work palette of adjunct printing, and that's the color palettes of this exhibition. Here you see images from the process, and to the left you can see traditional adjunct pattern yeah, that I did in India. So when I went to India, I went to learn it, and I did exactly what my master said, and this is before I dye it in any dye. This is with all the resist. It's ready to the first dye. But you can see the tradition pattern. The tradition pattern, first of all, and I really interested to see the similarity between Jewish patterns that I saw when Jewish pattern that I saw and the Islamic pattern. They both cannot have any how to say the figure. So they all abstract, abstract form. They usually have characters of circle, and each like circles and stars and flower. The color and those imagery represent part in the universe, right? The circle is the universe and the sun, the flower, the star, up and so on and so forth. When I came back to Minnesota, I wanted to create my own patterns based on that rules that I learned. So I still wanted it to be a relative abstract and with circles and flowers and so on, but I wanted to create my own stories. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I could potentially do the fabric in India, right? But for me, one of the things that interests me as an artist is that how the object change based on the location. So I had the knowledge, I learned it in India, but then I came to the United States, to Minneapolis, which, for example, the sun is very different. And here I try to do the same process, which of course change the color palettes and change a little bit the processes. And I'm very much interested in on those changes and adaptation. I took again all of the main theme of this exhibition is the woman in my family. And one of the things that for me represent home is my mom making a Iraqi dish called kubbeh. Just to understand, like, when me and my partner are fighting, yes, and I want to kind of like do a piece in the house, right? The first thing that I'm putting a pot on the oven and start to make kubbeh, yeah, because it's immediately take you this kind of like smell and comfort. Again, food, music, there are certain things that make us feel at home no matter where we are. But the other thing that I really interested about the kubbeh is that, how I would say, it's like it's a dance in the hand. In order to make the kubbeh, it's almost like letters, that's coming together that your mom is doing, yeah? And this specific dish, you cannot give someone a recipe and say, here, just follow the recipe, you will do it. If you will follow the recipe, you will not succeed to do kubbeh. You have to see someone doing it with their hands and how they're doing it. They're putting their hand in the water and so on and so forth. So what it interests me is this idea that maybe the way I'm moving my hand, it's the exact way that my mom moved her hand, and maybe it's the exact way that my grandma moved her hand. Like, what if the way we move in the space is very similar, and by doing it, we can, for me, in my kind of like imagination, by moving the hand in the similar manner that my mother moved her hand, she's with me, right? Like we connected, like a dance. What I did is like I photographed myself doing kubbeh, and I asked my mom to photograph herself doing kubbeh. And then I transform it into drawing, which eventually ending up being a wood block, as you can see here. By the way, these wood blocks are hand carved in India, in a place that I went to learn carving. But of course, I learned 3 days. Yeah, they're doing it all of her life. Of course, they laugh at me, the way I did it. It's not something that I can do. For me, sending this to them, it's also kind of like my small way of helping preserve that beautiful craft. Yeah. So that was carved by master, really. Mother of the Worlds, Emel Dunya, which Sharon mentioned. It's kind of like a center work in the exhibition is the circle. It's blue, it's in the middle, and you can look at the lev from one angle, and you can look at the red line from another angle. And the sound that I'm going to let you listen to, created by Nir Jacob Ionessi, is coming from within the mattress. The mattress is hand-sew wool mattress in the traditional way that my Libya grandma did for her children. The sound itself, it's segments of my father singing in Judeo-Tripolitanian, my grandma singing in Iraqi Jew, and she, by the way, she's singing a traditional song for the boy that born, right? Like, so the Iraqi really traditionally, they really celebrate when a boy was born, but when a girl was born, that was a bad thing. Yeah, they didn't like it. So there is a specific song for the boy, and also a song, also another Iraqi song that I met someone here in Minneapolis that record her Jewish Iraqi grandma. So again, this kind of combination between different location and different generation.
الأول والدات مشايعات.
Can you hear?
خرجنا معاهم والوالدون يقولن وهن من فرحهم بواكي وهم في حزنهم متبادل.
وجات الكلبة وقدمت القطوس اللي قالت جدي البش علي بابا بزوز فلوس واحد جدي.
So the sound, sometimes it's, first of all, it was important to us, to Nir and I, that all the sound and all the composition will come from the spoken words, and there is no effect on that terms. And when you hear, and sometimes it become kind of like a celebratory, like you celebrate something, and sometimes the sound actually become like an alarm, you know. Sometimes it's like beep, beep, something is like really bad maybe it's going to happen, and sometimes it's kind of like celebration. And when you come closer, right? So when you come closer, the sound becomes stronger, and it's coming from those holes. And in those holes, I treat those holes as a wound, as a cut in the mattress, and I treating it as such, I kind of like put something to block that wound. Yeah. And what that I put in different holes, I put something else. Here I put the zatar. From the right side, you just see how it's look like before I put it in. Or I put just like a fabric that I use a lot for the mother, right? So it's literally look like a wound. So I block the wound, and then around it, you see embroidery, white embroidery that I did after my mom found a textile where you see to the right that of my grandma in dowry. Probably, again, I don't know, it's, yeah, but the in dowry, usually the girls work for hours and hours sewing for themselves something for the time when they were married. And by the way, each one of these things, when I get it, I kind of like, right, of course, I do a research on it, and then you learn many different things. So for example, I was asking myself, why is it white on white? all of my grandma embroidery was white on white, and then I learned Iraq was colonized by the British, and the white on white considered was like a high, kind of like the queen embroidery. So I just kind of imagine, my grandma in her house after like 12 years old, she couldn't get out of the house. Imagine herself as the queen. Yeah, like just like think about this relationship. Okay, I will jump. I just wanted to show you also like insight to the process, because the processes are very important to me. I'm trying to make everything in my studio, again, when it makes sense, whenever it's possible, because I do thinking about the relationship that my body have with material and with making things. And, for me, like working with indigo, for example, here, and it's a very labor intensive process, like to get to that color. I don't know, but maybe my studio assistant here will say, at least 15 times, right? Like at least 15 times to dye again and again and washing and again and again. And that's also related to, if you're thinking about the tradition role of the Eastern woman, at least in my family, it was in the house and a lot of work that repeat itself, right? Like in the kitchen, in the laundry, so this kind of like connecting to this kind of act, and also connecting to material that generations work with, right? So what does it mean to work with something that also like 500 years ago and actually earlier, people use that material? What does it mean, right? How is it affect my body? Specific gesture when you travel. So it's not only that I went to learn the traditional craft, I also was I'm a little bit thinking about the artist as a spy a little bit, right? Because I when I went there, it was not only learning the craft, it was also like trying to see what make me feel at home, and kind of like specific aesthetic touching me. It was this exhibition for me personally, it's a lot about like finding my true aesthetic that I feel connected to. And the reason I mentioned it is, for example, in Buj, where we this is to the left is the place where I study adjunct printing. And in this small village, there is no restaurant or something like that. So the person who teach me invite us to eat lunch in his house, right? Every day. So when we went there, for me, one of the things that was really interesting to me is like the way the house was arranged. It was very similar actually to my aunt's house, that all the furniture is kind of like aside. There is not a lot of furniture. And then when we came to eat, he took the fabric that he made, put on the floor, and we sat on the floor. And for me, I really felt comfortable in that situation. When something like that happened, I'm thinking about like, what is it, the difference between sitting on the floor and sitting on a chair, why you feel comfortable this way as opposed to other way, right? And so on. So I would just say that there is two sound in the exhibition. One is the sound that you heard that's coming from the centerpiece, and another sound that is in the background and is very quiet, which is a sound of all the actions that took place during learning to make and making in my studio, washing and tapping the fabric and so on. But again, it's kind of like a sound that it's almost like the white noises in the space. I should mention that most of the artwork in the exhibition, I gave them a name in English, which is a translation from the Iraqi language. And yeah, Zoe, maybe I would say thank you, and sorry that I couldn't touch everything. And yeah, we can open for a question, and I will just keep showing the images.
Thank you, Rotem. That's thank you for giving us like more of an insight on the process and how many steps and people are involved into making these gorgeous pieces. Rob McLean wanted to ask you a question that it's not typed. So maybe Rob, if you want to mute or type in the chat.
First off, Sharon Toval, and Happy New Year. And Sharon, happy anniversary. It's good to see everybody. I am a student at the U, and actually Rotem was my professor for a couple of semesters, and I worked for her on this project. But I have a question that has been coming up a lot in my contemporary art theory class, and it has to do with the word craft as opposed to art. And Sharon, you brought up the word craft early on in this in the introduction. My take on it is, you brought the idea of craft from in ancestral ways, and traveling to India to learn about the craft. And the way you used the hands was important to you, and they're very central to your fabric patterns. But the dyes, the use of hands, the creation of the mattresses, the work of the dough, all seems very craft-based to me until it gets into your hands, Rotem. What's your take on the difference between craft and fine art with your work?
It's a very, first of all, thank you for the question. And I have to say, Rob is one of the two amazing studio assistants that really was involved in this project. And I'll thank you for the question. It's a, I don't want to try and claim, I'm not talking as an art historian or, I will talk from my perspective and from my current perspective, because my relationship between art and craft change over time too, right? So it might also change in the future. At the moment, I can tell you that a couple of things. First of all, like, for example, Sufyan Khatri, the master that I went to learn from abstract printing, yeah, he is doing it. His father used to do it, right? And his father revived that craft from the generation before him. There was a gap. There was some gap in between, again, like after the Industrial Revolution, and it disappeared and so on, and then he bring it back. So first of all, many times, like, traditional craft move in the family, and it's something that you become a master at. Like, I cannot say that I'm a master in abstract printing. That will be how to say it. I respect so much what they're doing, yeah. So they are very, very professional in what they're doing, and you cannot cheat those things. How to say it? Today we call it artisan, right? Like there are certain things that, like, you become, you know to do it very well only by doing it again and again and again, and really connected to it. When I come, I'm an amateur. As an artist, I'm coming and I'm an amateur in what that I am doing, and I'm aware of it and I embrace it, right? Because I'm an amateur, I feel that I don't have necessarily any string to the tradition, and I can imagine and manipulate it in a certain way. Again, I'm a very amateur, and for me that's one of the big difference that I see. Sharon, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that first of all, you're very right when you say that the frontier or the border between craft and art is changing, is flowing, and it's a very temporary. There is always temporary definitions of these two area, and they change all the time. But originally, of course, when after the democratization of the arts and the development of the museums from the second part of the 19th century, the more art was defined as art, the more, and I'm not talking only about painting, I'm talking about photography, for example, because at the beginning, photography was not an art. It was even considered to be something very low. And the more art was defined as art, the more the craft was differentiated from it. And then and the more craft was defined as something functional and not really for the meaning of aesthetic, solely for aesthetic, only for aesthetic reasons. It has a function. A fabric has a function. But today it's we are in a complete different space time. I mean, it's craft and art are very integrated one in each other, and especially, I mean, in exhibitions like yours, and I was in Jaipur last week, and I could see all the area, to visit all the area with these craftsmen and masters, and they keep it as craft. They don't want, because they don't want to call it, but they call it art as well. But it really depends also where are you coming from. If you are working in the field of art, or if you are, somebody from outside. So yeah, anyway, could talk about it much.
Yeah, I will just, sorry, I'm just going to add something, because when Sharon talked, I thought it's important to mention that the craft that I'm dealing with, it's craft that traditionally women did, right? Women did, and they did in the house. And just to think about it, there is not a lot of history, right? And past to visual art women, right? So, and definitely not in the Eastern, where woman was segregated. Again, it's, of course, there was exceptional, but traditionally women were segregated to be in the house. So even like, let's say my grandma, let's say maybe if she would live today, she would be an artist, who knows, right? She didn't even have that opportunity. So so I have to take that. This is her making, right? This is her making. The kubbeh is her making. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rotem and Sharon. This was such an interesting discussion, and so beautiful to see how this all came together.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.